Good evening. My name is Allison Hicks, and today I'm going to talk about something that's really important to me, and that is the opioid epidemic in America. A lot of people that I know personally have suffered or passed away from addiction, and I am aiming to shed some light on the actual crisis that's happening in America and Arkansas specifically, and to help people who are suffering themselves or know someone who's suffering and doesn't know how to help them. I'm going to go through a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what an opioid actually is. I'm going to go over the origin, how it started in America, when it started to peak, how it's affecting Arkansas specifically, and I'm also going to talk about whether it is an actual disease or is it a choice. There's always been a big debate about whether it's a disease or a choice, and I'm going to dive into the facts about that. Also, at the end, I'm going to offer some resources for places around Arkansas and even outside of Arkansas that can help anyone that's suffering from addiction or knows someone who's suffering from it and wants to reach out and help them. What is an opioid? A lot of people think opiates and opioids are the same thing, but they're not. An opiate is a naturally occurring thing. It comes from a poppy plant that naturally produces opium, and that's something like morphine and codeine. An opioid is a broader term, which is for synthetic things like fentanyl, hydrocodone, oxycodone, and it's also for the natural occurring things like the morphine and the codeine. But just because it's natural does not make it any less harmful. They're both extremely addictive. There are different types of opiates. There are three major types. There are natural opiates, which are morphine and codeine. There are semi-synthetic ones, which are the hydrocodone and the oxycodone, and heroin. And then there's fully synthetic, which is fentanyl, methadone, and tramadol. There were three major waves of the opioid crisis. The first one started in 1991, and that's when there was a really big surge of doctors prescribing prescription opiates, such as the hydrocodone, the oxycodone, morphine, and they were prescribing a lot of them because they were under the impression that prescription opiates weren't as addictive as things like heroin or fentanyl that you could find on the street. But by 1999, 86% of patients using opioids were using them for non-cancer pain. And then the second wave came around 2010, and that's when there was a rapid increase from heroin abuse. Around this time, doctors started to catch on and decrease their prescribing of like hydrocodone and oxycodone, and so heroin is a lot cheaper and it's easier to find. So a lot of people started getting addicted to that. But the problem with heroin is that it's never what it seems. A lot of drugs on the street are mixed with deadly things such as fentanyl, which is so easy. Like a micro amount can cause you to overdose and cause your heart to stop and die. The third wave began in 2013 when an increase in deaths related to synthetic opioids like fentanyl occurred. That's what I was talking about. A lot of heroin is cut with fentanyl. Like, you honestly don't know what you're getting on the street, and a lot of it's more fentanyl than heroin, and that causes your breathing to slow down, which causes you to go into cardiac arrest, which ultimately can cause you to die if you do not get help immediately. Drug overdose is the leading cause of accidental death in the U.S. right now. Opioid overdoses increased 30% from July 2016 through September 2017 throughout 45 states and 52 different areas in each state. But the crisis in Arkansas is also extremely tricky. Arkansas is number 2 in the nation for overprescribing opioid medications. I was researching, and it said there were 116 prescriptions per 100 people that were being given out for opiates. And between 2000 and 2014, the rate of neonatal abstinence syndrome, which is when babies are born with drugs in their systems, increased from 0.3 per 1,000 births to 3.3 per 1,000 deaths. And the age group with the greatest past year non-medical use of opiates is between the ages of 18 and 25. Now, there's an ongoing debate on whether addiction is a disease or if it's a choice. Of course, everyone knows that addiction starts by the person choosing to use the drug, but over time, it starts to affect your body in the way that a disease does. A lot of medical associations consider addiction a disease just because of what it does to your body. It changes your brain chemistry, like eventually it causes you to need the drug even to function normally. Like eventually, even though you're building up your tolerance, you become so used to needing it that you need it to function. It also causes your bones to thin, and it can impair regrowth. So a lot of opiate abusers break their bones a lot and have a lot of bone fractures. And it can also cause your heart line to become infected due to contamination from opioid use. A disease is what happens to the body as a result of choices. It's not just because you chose it. Just because heart disease is a disease, but a lot of that comes from diet and choices that the person made, but it's still a disease. There's a lot that we can do on our end to try to help those who suffer from addiction or to become more knowledgeable about it. You should be aware and look at the behaviors and patterns of people around you that you know are going through very intense situations in life or depression. Offer help. Don't judge. Listen to someone. I know it's easy to turn your back on someone who is in active addiction. I've been there, but they need us more than ever. They need someone to help them, even when they don't know how to help themselves. There are a couple of hotlines out there that can help people. There's 1-800-662-HELP was a 24-hour line that is able to figure out where you are so that they can offer you referrals to different rehabs around your area and help with insurance, because I know a lot of people don't have insurance. They can help you find places that will work with you. There's also 1-800-273-TALK, which is a suicide prevention hotline. And I reached out to a couple of people that I know were personally affected by addiction, and they recommended a couple of rehabs. There is the John 316 Ministries, and then there's Harbor House, which are pretty far out, but they are really great people, and I've heard really great things about them for people who've been there. And there's so many more. Just Google it, and Google will give you a whole list of places that are willing to help. I hope that was really informative. I hope that this reached someone out there. Addiction is a very real thing in our country and in our state, and a lot of people around our age are dying because they don't know how to reach out for help. They're ashamed, and they don't know the facts. So it's a really good thing to be informed and to be aware. And I hope I was able to help someone today. Thank you for listening.